Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm with the City of Moscow. I manage your farmers market. Welcome to the Love Your Farmer, Love Your Food event 2018. I'd like to start off with a special thank you to our steering committee. We have Colette DePhelps, Marcy Miller, Misty Amarena. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous to start off with. Janine Eslick, Iris Mays, Max Newland, and Alicia Rock, and myself. We've worked hard this year to bring this to you. If you've noticed, there's a few refreshments. On the side here, we have lovely desserts. We'd like to thank Goose House Bakery, Kitchen Counter loves Kombucha, and the Moscow Co-op. We also have some beer and wine from Colter's Creek and Moscow Brewing Company. Coffee's available from Landgrove. We have a rough agenda on the back. We will be starting off with some introductions of our panel. There's mention of a raffle. I think we'll probably take a break and make sure everyone gets raffle tickets and maybe another beverage. So. With that, I'd like to introduce Colette DePhelps. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is our fourth Love Your Farmer, Love Your Food event. And when we were talking about putting this together, we were looking back at the different events we've had, where we've held them, what's worked. And we said, that first event that we had, our panel was all men. And we said, this year we're going to have all women. And we are really excited because there's a lot of powerhouse women out there in our local food and agriculture. And we're happy that they would take their time to come tonight and tell their stories. So we have some questions to start out with that we're going to ask the panel. Each panel member will have about 2 minutes to respond. And then you have an opportunity later tonight to ask questions. So on your chair, there's a piece of paper, and if you could write your questions on there, we are going to collect those, and then I'll say them at the mic so everybody can hear them. So if you can write who your question is for and what your question is, that would be great. If you want to get up at any time and get something else to drink or to eat, please do that. In some ways, we're kind of informal. This is a fun night, and we want you to have a great time. So I really want to thank our panelists again for coming, and they had an opportunity to kind of look at the questions we were asking to start, and then I redid some of the questions. Only one, actually. But the first one is the one that they probably have the easiest time answering. And so we would like each person to introduce themselves and tell us about your farm or business. And if you could use the mic, that would be great. You can take it off its stand if you want to have this mic and just move it, or you can move it with the stand. It's really up to you. So since it's kind of in front of Margaret, we'll just go ahead and start with Margaret.
Do I have to use the mic?
You do.
Are you sure? No, the mic is not my friend. How's that? Great. Okay. My name is Margaret Parsley. I am the owner of Omache Farm in Pullman, Washington, along with my husband, Jason. I have a bachelor's in animal science, and my husband has one in organic ag. We grow vegetables and put those through our CSA, the farmers markets in Pullman and Moscow, as well as wholesale accounts in both cities as well. And then we also grow grass-fed sheep and goats. We have pastured hogs, pastured laying hens as well, and a lot of that goes through retail sales also.
Hi, I'm Melissa Sandborn with Colter's Creek Winery and Vineyards down in Julietta, and now here in Moscow as well. And my husband Mike Pearson and I bought our vineyard in 2007. There were about 7 to 8 acres of abandoned vines. Now we're up to about 30. And I think we're going to stop at 30. I hope so.
I'm Karen Chojnacki. That's how you pronounce that. I'm the owner of Reverie Farm, and I grow medicinal herbs. I'm trialing about 120 species of various herbs that are Western, traditional Western, Native American, traditional Chinese, and Ayurvedic. And I just started selling this past year, mostly online, and also at Sam's Apothecary in Pullman, which you really need to go check out.
My name's Hannah Binninger, and I'm the owner of Landgrove Coffee outside of Troy with my husband, John. We started it in 1998. It's a long time ago now to me. And we don't grow coffee, so I'm not a farmer, but we're mostly about 95% wholesale, and we sell a lot locally, and we also ship coffee out, so.
I'm Christine Stratton, and I'm the co-owner of Stratton's Cutting Garden with my mom, Jane Stratton. And we're a 3-acre flower farm between Pullman and Moscow. We have U-pick and a weekly delivery route through the growing season. Not right now. And then also we do some wholesale, limited.
Hi, everybody. My name is Renee Love. I own Love's Kombucha with my husband Emmett in the back. We brew here in Moscow. We started business here in Moscow, and we brew in town. We started our business last May and started selling at the Moscow Saturday Farmers Market. And if you don't know what kombucha is a probiotic fermented tea drink. And so we ferment the teas in a culture of yeast and bacteria. I think that's all I'm going to say for now.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to attend this event. My son and I can you hear me? Okay. Our farm is located on the outskirts of the town of Palouse. It's run by my son and myself. We purchased our farm in 1992 while we were living in Montana. And during that time, it was conventionally farmed by the adjoining landowner. Then it was in hay ground for 3 years. After we moved back, Guy started working for a dryland farmer, and I got a job as a cook at the Palouse schools. So one day we got this aha moment that we were having people farm our ground. We decided it's a farm, we should make it our own farm. So over the past 15 years, we have slowly added hay ground, pastures, a flock of sheep, vegetable gardens, a small grain plot, and perennial fruits. Presently, we are working on restoring some old pasture and planting more pollinator habitats. Our philosophy is that if we take good care of our land, it will take good care of us and our community.
Thank you. So local food always has a story, and a lot of people are native to this place, meaning that they have been born and raised here, and other people have a story of coming here, like Bev just shared. And our next question is really an invitation for our panelists to tell their story. So how did you come to be involved in local food and agriculture in the Palouse-Clearwater region?
Well, in 2012, we started selling produce at the local farmers markets. And on off days, then we would harvest and donate to various places. In 2016, we were invited to attend a roundtable hosted by the Council on Aging and Human Services, Northwest Harvest, and the Pullman Community Action Center. The focus of that meeting was how to get fresh produce to the pantries in Whitman County. Laura Tisner from the Northwest Harvest introduced the farm to food pantry program as an incentive to get more farmers involved. by offering a fair wholesale price on the produce that was grown. After the meeting was over, Guy and I had another aha moment, and we said, we can do this, we can help. So Paige and Sarah from the Council of Aging came out to inspected our farm, and we signed a contract to grow for the pantries. We ended up quitting the markets and started growing full-time. It's a good fit for us, as we can harvest more than once a week. Last year, we were able to deliver personally to 6 of the 13 pantries, to the seniors in Pullman and Palouse, and to the Albion Summer Lunch Program. This year, we plan to step it up and expand and grow more.
Okay, so well, our long-term goal has always been to own a farm, basically. And the Love's Kombucha business kind of came in a roundabout way where, well, my husband and I grew up in the local area. We went to WSU and then U of I. And then we left for a few years and ended up moving back to the area. But back in 2001, when we were in school in our undergrad, we always had the long-term goal of being a part of the community and having a farm. And so when we moved back to Moscow, we bought 3 acres in town, and we did a small vegetable farm, and that was in 2015. And then we decided that kombucha would be a really good addition to what we were doing there on the farm. And so we decided to start Love's Kombucha, because it's a product that we really did agree with. And now the kombucha has somewhat taken over, and at least the time that we're spending now, and we hope to cycle back around back to the farm. We do have a lot of berries that we grow and sell at the farmer's market, but we also sell our kombucha, of course, there as well. I think that's it. That was the question, right?
So I am the 5th generation of a homesteaded farm. So I grew up actually in a house that's adjoining the flower farm. And then, and I was always involved. It's something I enjoyed very much growing up. But there wasn't necessarily a spot for me at that time. And so I went to college and I moved away and always expressed an interest. And so that was in time. My opportunity came when my parents were looking to scale back. So I think that's it. That's how I got involved. So yeah.
Let's see here. I did not grow up here. I grew up in the middle of suburbia on the west side of Washington. I have absolutely zero experience as a child with farm animals or anything of that sort. But I did always like animals, and I liked being outside. My husband and I met when we were working for a Boy Scout camp over there, and we kind of got attached to the idea that had been floating around the older staff for generations was to bring back the farm that used to work on the Boy Scout camp to serve some of those programs that they no longer do over there. So since neither of us had any knowledge, we came over to here. We went to WSU. We got our degrees. We had some kind people that said, hey, why don't you bring the sheep that you own over? And after that, we just kind of started putting more roots down and decided we liked it better over here. And we've really grown to love this area in particular.
Let's see. My husband and I are both from elsewhere. He's from southern Idaho. I'm from Washington State. And we met in Moscow and decided that we wanted to make wine. And for us, the whole experience of making wine had to start with the grapes, and so we knew we wanted to grow our own vines. And so we started looking kind of all over the Northwest where we wanted to grow. And my husband has another business here in Moscow, so we knew we couldn't go overseas or anything like that. We had to stay relatively close, and we started venturing down to the Clearwater area, which is where our vines are. And the more we researched the area, the more we learned that that was kind of the beginning of grape growing in the Pacific Northwest. And thought, well, heck, let's just do it here. And that's what we've done, and kind of been at the beginning of the industry down there in the Lewis Clark Valley.
So neither of us were from this area either. I'm from New York and Boston, did not grow up in this idyllic countryside, did not grow up with, I mean, we had some cute farms, but it was nothing like this. And we traveled all over the northern part of the country. I was doing mostly wildlife field work. My husband was doing timber framing. And we, the best way to describe it is when we got to the Palouse, we kind of got sucked into the Palouse vortex. I think there's some other ones of you that have been sucked in. And then we never were able to leave. We just like loved it here. And from the second we first moved here, like we were always eyeing these farms and was like, we want that, you know. And I don't know, it just all clicked. It fell into place. A lot of my passions with herbal medicine, and I was working with infectious diseases for a long time. We're both very, very outdoorsy people, and it just fell into place that farming was like right for us, and it feels awesome. So that's kind of how we fell into it.
Well, I'm from Vermont, and I met my husband in Boise, and he had started a little drive-through coffee shop that he'd built with a friend from U of I. They'd gone down and built like really small, like 12 by 12. And I used to have to leave. I worked at the Peregrine Fund rearing falcons. And I had to take baby falcons and take them to the airport at 5 in the morning. And so nothing was open. And then I'd go back except Java Detour. So then that's where I met John. And then our wheels started turning about how we could move back up north, which is where John was from, and get out of the retail side of that business and into a more wholesale side of what we do now. And we used to move our business around a little bit. We started it in Sandpoint. We moved it to McCall and built a place, and then we moved to Salmon for a little while, and then we moved here in 2002, I think, 2003. So we've been here ever since, and it's been a really good fit for us. And also, it got hard to move the roaster around. Should I keep it for the next one?
Sure. So what inspires you to do the work you do?
Well, I think it's changed over the years, but now probably what I'm most inspired by is our connection to all the people that we deal with on all different levels, locally, and even just getting the coffee to us, and how we, just maybe our connection with our customers probably is my biggest inspiration at this point. And making it work. I'm a good worker, so I enjoy making things happen. And when you own your own business, you have to make things happen.
Well, I guess the short version is I really like to watch things grow. I just really enjoy that. I enjoy digging in the dirt. And that just is really my passion. And so I'm very much inspired by my plants. I get very excited about the growing of my plants, which is why I feel like it's the right thing for me to be doing. And I am also inspired often by customers when they get very excited about using the plants. I think it's a really important thing in our culture that we need to be propagating, just some alternatives to dealing with stress and other lifestyle diseases that have really popped up in our modern culture. So I really enjoy helping people, and also just in the growing of our farm, it's so exciting when we see new species, particularly pollinators that come in. We got a really cool moth last year, and that is my inspiration. I love it. It's like, ooh, who am I gonna get this year? So I don't know.
And moths are really bad in the vineyard, so we're keep your moths away. I think I have maybe 3 inspirations. Definitely, customers over the years have become the number one. You have a lot of people that have become family just because you see them all the time. I see several of them here today, and definitely just keep going for them. 2 is in the wine industry, you're really defined by each year, what the vines are going to do each year. And you kind of live for that. Harvest is really exciting. It's kind of the basis of the whole year, and just to see what's going to happen. and then you get to rest for a little bit, and then you start all over again come, February and get all ready again, and that's pretty exciting. And then thirdly, we've got just some awesome crew. We've got great employees, and we've got to do a good job so they still have a job. And we employ quite a few people, and we're proud to do that. It's kind of our goal for our business now.
There's a lot that keeps me going. Some of the more basic things is it's a really flexible lifestyle. I can, and then sometimes of the year I have to be nose to the grindstone. Sometimes of the year I can do absolutely nothing, and that is totally okay. Some of the other things are like working in selling food to people. It's got pretty good job security when it comes down to it, because I know you all like to eat. I love working in the service industry. If I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be waiting tables or something like that. My husband and I drive taxi in the wintertime, and yeah, it's because we could use the money in our pockets, but at the same time, we really enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun, and we get the same kind of experience from going to market every week. That's how we keep going to 2 markets every single week for most of the year, between winter and summer markets. And I also, just watching things, it's a really interesting dichotomy between being creative and being intensely organized, in order to develop new products, get them to market, and then getting it set up in such a way is really creative so that I can get it into people's homes so that they will come back and they'll buy from me week after week. It's just really exciting to put it all together.
So for me, I also, like Karen, love to watch things grow, have my hands in the dirt. I also really like to work physically. I was a business analyst for a long time, and I always found excuses. I would never pick up the phone. If I didn't have to, I'd wander over to another building, anything to be outside, moving. I really appreciate that part of farming, and interacting with nature, so watching things develop. And there's something also that I guess I didn't really expect. I knew that I loved all these physical aspects of farming, but specifically flower farming, I wasn't completely sold on that, honestly, being a very practical person. And I was thinking, well, maybe to introduce some food, something more practical. I do love flowers, but watching people come, especially to the U-Pick, and now I really also appreciate the therapeutic aspect. And you see couples come that are picking at each other, and an hour later they leave and they're snuggling. And you see, people come as a group to pick for a funeral or a family reunion or a wedding, and it's fascinating. And individuals come and they're struggling with something, and you see them let it go. Maybe in a day, or maybe they're coming every week through the season, and you get to watch them process something and be a part of that. That's something I never would have dreamed, but I really love.
So what inspires me is I care about local foods, and I fully believe in our product, which is kombucha. It makes me feel good. It really helped my digestive system, and I really hope that it does the same for our customers. Also, we really wanted to offer healthier local choices and drinks. Kombucha is a part of that. It also connects me to the community that I love here in Moscow, and I think that's what inspires me the most. I really enjoy interacting with our customers and meeting new people in the community, so that's been very, very inspiring.
I get a lot of inspiration from Leah and Greg Simple of Pokey Creek Farm. Leah was our neighbor at the Moscow Farmers Market when we were vendors there. We've been to their crop mob now for 3 years. They're really hard workers. They grow great food, and they're good stewards of their land. I also get inspiration from our 49 members of the Whitman County Food Coalition. We're all working to end hunger on the Palouse and poverty on the Palouse. It's meaningful work, and Guy and I are grateful that we can be part of something bigger than ourselves.
Local food is often described as a means for building relationships and strengthening communities. What role does community play in the success of your farm or business?
Well, I think volunteering is the key to our success and building community. I volunteer at the school. This doesn't have anything to do with food, but I volunteer 3 days a week listening to first and second graders read for their AR program. Guy and I volunteer at the Colfax pantries and the Garfield pantries when we can. I also, I think building community, I'm now working with third graders at the Palouse School, and we're going to start a garden this spring. I've established relationships with the food pantries that we deliver to.
Well, I really think community is the best part in all of this. I love going to the farmers market, the Saturday farmers market, and you get to interact with so many different community members and meet new people, and that's really the connection that I wanted to have when we moved back to Moscow, and that's what we do have, going to the farmers market. It helps us stay connected to our customers, and this winter we started a home delivery service so we could still see our customers during the winter months outside of winter market and when the summer farmers market isn't going. We just started our business last May, but we have started to go to some local fundraisers. We helped the Palouse Charter School raise money. We also have done how-to workshops, and we went to one in Lapway, how to brew kombucha and have healthier drinks for digestive systems and overall health. We went to the Late July Fest, which was fun. And so, we do like to do events as well to stay connected.
So I feel like the community has had a huge part in the success of Stratton's Cutting Garden. Our advertising is completely inadequate. And really, it's been word of mouth that has created that business. And granted, my mom, if anyone knows her, she's a very social person, but it clearly branched off from there a great deal. So, and what I was describing before, it's like there's community that develops on the farm, like season to season, and in a given week, a day, like people meet each other and get to know each other. And that's a part of it. That's a part of the experience. So it's a huge piece.
We've got a number of different ways that the community has contributed to the success of our business. The first two being one of our main outlets, and one of the main ones, especially when we were just starting, was our CSA, as well as sales at the farmers markets, and just being able to connect with other people that really love food, and they can get excited and they can come. They have to have my whatever, because whatever my thing is, it's absolutely the best according to them. And they have to have it. So being able to create those connections and create those regular customers that we know on a first name basis and we are excited to see every week is really great to build that connection. And then on the other side of it is there's been several times when we have had trouble, we have had challenges, we have had disasters, and we know that we can turn to the people that we know and we can say we need help, and whatever it is, they show up. And there, a lot of those times, if we hadn't had that connection with our community, I would not be here. I would not still be here. So building that connection with our local community and building a family has been really important to us.
If you're not from Julietta Kendrick, you're kind of an outsider, and it took a little bit to get to know people. And the way that we got to know people down there and kind of become part of the community, which is old, was to just say, hey, we really need help picking grapes. There's no migrant workforce down in the Lewis-Clark Valley, and grapes are very laborious. And so when it comes to harvest time, we kind of get in a little bit of a pickle if we don't have people to get out there and pick grapes. When you've got to pull, 5 to 6 tons of grapes off in 5 hours, you need a lot of people. And so the community just stepped up, and, one day I sent out an email and 40 people showed up. And we've worked out a kind of a fundraising system with several different groups who come in and they pick grapes, and they're all local organizations that just need to, earn a little bit of money from the Vandal Cyclers. They come and they pick. Karate, we get some karate groups. You've got little 10-year-olds running around picking grapes. They're not the greatest of grape pickers, but hey, they get it done. They have fun. And so that's been a really great relationship we've developed with several organizations in the Quad City area. The other big thing for us has been not just seeing people, the same people come in our door every week and bring new people in, but going out to local restaurants and hotels and things and saying, hey, why don't you have such and such wine in your, and not just ours, everyone else who's producing wine in this valley, why don't you have those on your list? And that's just as important as coming in our door, as getting the word out on the street. So that's been huge for us.
So beyond the community of customers, which I can't say enough good about, I also want to speak about the community of other farmers and other producers, which is fantastic. And I think this area is really a gem, particularly for finding other farmers that are young, or at least startups, or females. Like, that's really been helpful for me. I can't say enough good about it. And also a community of people like you, like foodies, and people who want to support community food systems and sustainable agriculture, and the Ladies of Rural Roots, and all of these other awesome organizations out there. That is really oftentimes really inspiring for me and really helpful. And also, I really love, once again, my communities of insects and other cool things that I find when I'm growing, and awesome birds that I see, and just all this, I don't know, there's just so much when it comes to the web of life that I feel like I'm connected with as a farmer. And the Palouse has such a unique region. It's a unique, ecosystem, and the bioregion is a very rare occurrence on the planet, and we really need to preserve what's left of it. And that's why it's really exciting for me too to look at it from that aspect of all the other species that are out there.
Well, our community is really based on people that we sell our coffee to, and where people like you can go and get a cup of coffee and enjoy it with each other. And so I guess that's really where I find the biggest sense of community, and my relationship with all those stores and individuals that we sell coffee to. The other way that we're involved with community is by making donations to things locally, always supporting whatever we can. And so that is another, and then we have connections that way by helping our school, if we can help do service there by donating coffee to help raise money for Boy Scouts or whatever we can within our town, or Moscow, or anybody that asks us. And that's one way I feel like that we can give back a little bit to our community too.
All right, thanks. So how many people in the audience have been inspired by one of the local farmers or food producers in our area? Yeah, that's what I thought. So you all are real inspirations to us. I know personally in the work that I've done, it's people like you, the farmers, the entrepreneurs, people that are really dedicated to building local businesses and local opportunities that are really inspiring me every day. It's why I get up. It's like, you are mentors in many ways to me. And I think that you're mentors to a lot of other people in more ways than you know. And so tonight we'd really like to know, what advice do you have for other women interested in getting involved in local food and agriculture?
Well, I'd say don't be afraid to try. And don't be afraid to ask questions of people who are doing it, because I think everybody likes to share their challenges and accomplishments, and it's nice to be asked. And I think that people can do anything if they set their mind to it. And it's important to remember that. So if you have a dream, you should try to make it happen.
I guess my best advice is anything that you start, plan on spending about 3 times what you think it's going to cost, and roughly 3 to 4 times the amount of time. And then also plan on rejoicing in your failures, because this is where the true learning experiences are, because you're not going to do it that way again. And I feel like that's where I've really learned a lot. And I think you got to just laugh at it, like, because a lot is going to happen that it might not be funny, but you just got to get past those barriers and just keep charging ahead and find some humor in it all, because that's the only way you're going to get by, at least for me.
I guess my advice would be, you're going to have to do everything if you're going to do your own business. I mean, yeah, being a winemaker, sometimes people think it's really cool, but I still scrub the toilets and I still write the checks. Do you have to scrub the toilets? Yeah. Do the guys scrub the toilet? No. Yeah, see, that's still falling on the women. Gosh, come on, guys. Yeah, there we go. And so you're going to do it all, and that's okay. I enjoy doing it all. So just make sure the focus of what you're going to do is something you really love. Because if you're just doing it because it's popular, you think you might make a buck, it's not going to be as fun in 5 years when you're still scrubbing the same toilet. So.
I do have guys who scrub the toilet, but it's a porta potty, so. As far as advice, I'd say, make sure that you do your research from credible sources. Ask questions of people who are doing it. Ask the big guys, ask the little guys, because everybody's got a different perspective. Sit down and make yourself a budget to see if it actually makes any sense in the way that you're thinking before you dive into it. Otherwise, you will empty your pocketbook really fast. And that's kind of on the business side of things. On the other side of it, my background's in livestock, so a lot of the people that I deal with, they're part of this good old boys club. They deal with people who are selling animals out of confinement operations, and that's fine. That's what works for them. But I, as a woman, I had to not take my husband with me when I go talk to these type of people, and I have to make sure I leave my kids at home so that they treat me like a human being sometimes, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, I also learned how to step up and be big and be powerful and say, no, this is how I want it, this is how you're going to do it. And sometimes that's just what it takes, is you just have to step up and be pushier, which as a woman, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the feeling, is that's really hard sometimes. And the last piece that I would think of is it's kind of a combination of, in part, you have to fake it till you make it, whether it's just putting on your smile when you're having a really bad day, or maybe you have to say, I don't know, but what about this? And the other side of that coin is to be authentic, especially when you're talking about building with community, is, admit that you made a mistake. Offer up, here's what happened. This, we had just a really bad day. And that, as much as the good thing will bring people in, being authentic and saying, I am a human being and I had a bad day today, that brings in friends and community as well, as long as you're doing both sides of the coin there.
So I think there's a huge amount of value in finding people involved in agriculture that really inspire you and who you really enjoy being around. And there are a lot of people that are very willing to share their time and experience, and a lot of really experienced people. that's big. And then there's this bit about gleaning what is valuable to you, what feeds you, as opposed to like just taking it all, because we have so much in common with anyone in agriculture, and we tend to focus on the little things that are really different. But there's so much more that is the same, and there's so much to learn from other people. So finding other people that are starting and other people that are really experienced, it's all really valuable.
So my advice is short. It's to outline your goals, make sure you know why you're doing it, and have that clear before you start. And then also believe in your product. We believe in our product, and we think it's good for us and other people, and so that keeps us going as well.
Well, all of these ladies have pretty much said what I was going to say. But I'd like to add resources. Deep Roots Farm, Green Tree Naturals, Pokey Creek Farm, and there's a Beth Robinette that has a cattle ranch. All of these people, if you're interested in a particular way to farm, they're very most helpful. Rural Roots, the Palouse Clearwater Food Coalition, Idaho Cultivating Success and Sustainable Small Farms, and I think WSU also has a program. If you happen to be a vet, Anthony Alvarez with Vets on the Farm, Colette DePhelps, Amanda Snyder, and Iris Mays, and Marcy Miller all have a wealth of knowledge and are very helpful. WSU and the University of Idaho have, I think, organic programs that you can intern. There's the Washington TILF that has a list of, say you wanted to intern somewhere. SEEDWA, I think it's called SWEDA, with Sarah McKnight. They have a wonderful program, so if you were for loaning money, they have lots of resources. I would say also to take the word can't out of your vocabulary. You can do it if you have the mindset. Decide what interests you. Say, for instance, you wanted to have an orchard. Backyard Harvest is a great place to go to because they glean fruit, so you could learn to pick. So just check into internships. Take the plunge with, I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks. So now's the time in the program where you get to ask your questions. So if you have some questions, I think Marcy is going to come around and collect them. And while she's doing that, does everybody have a raffle ticket? So you should go, get up and stretch, go to the back and get a raffle ticket if you don't have one, because we have 7 great raffles tonight. And before we start the open Q&A, I'm going to do a couple raffles. And you can help yourself to dessert and drinks as well. So we'll give about 5 minutes of break to get your raffle tickets and something to eat or drink, and pass your questions forward. So we have a lot of questions. And this first question is open to anyone who wants to answer, any and all, so if you are inspired. What did you do to choose your line of work? Was it happenstance? I get overwhelmed with all the things I could do and have a hard time choosing. So how did you choose? Anyone who wants to volunteer?
I also have a very hard time choosing, and I definitely have not focused on one thing. I'm also a geologist, and I teach at the university and a few classes at WSU too. So you have to juggle and then see how it'll work. And yeah, so just learning what really feeds your soul is really important and what makes you happy.
I think I also have an answer for that one. In case you hadn't noticed, we kind of do a little bit of everything. As far as actually running it like a business, we have sat down and we've made, for our pigs, we made an enterprise budget. That's the only one that actually got done. But on the whole, it's like we do what we love to do, which is a little bit of everything, but the things that we do most are the things that make us money. When it comes down to it for that. And it's that way we have this good balance of enjoying every day and living for it, and at the same time making sure that I can come back and do it tomorrow.
Okay, great. This next question is for Melissa. Can you please tell us about the LC Valley appellation and its importance?
Yeah, so in 2016, April of 2016, the Lewis Clark Valley was designated as an American viticultural area. What that means is it's federally designated as a grape growing region. It's in the Federal Register, and it just means lots of things, but mostly it's a distinct area for grapes. The grapes that come from there are different than they come from anywhere else in the country. It took us about 7 years to get there. It was two couples, my husband and I, and then Coco and Carl Umaker from Clearwater Canyon Cellars, who pursued it. We hired Alan Busaka, who was formerly from WSU, to write the petition and submitted it. We thought it would be, an easy one, in and out in 2 years, and then because of federal regulation laws, it took a long, long time. I just learned that actually in the past month why it took so long, and anyway, it's really huge for us. We can put it on our label. Says Lewis Clark Valley, so if you don't see Lewis Clark Valley on a local wine, it just means the grapes didn't come from here. We source grapes from out of the valley as well, just because we don't have enough producing yet on our own property to have 100%. Actually, I guess last year we were 100% Lewis Clark Valley. It was the first year, and it was pretty exciting for us. So, yeah, that's what it means.
Thanks. This question is for the whole panel. Is there a product or variety of your products that you would consider a hidden gem that customers haven't discovered yet?
I'll speak for, on the wine side, some of our grapes are just now coming into production for the past year or two. So we have a certain couple varietals that are coming out that people are really liking. Tempranillo has been one that's been doing well, and probably some others I can't think of off the top of my head in front of all these people. But ice wine, yeah, that was something you pick when the grapes get down to, I think it's below 18 degrees. So we were out picking Riesling when it was 14 degrees out. It sucked, but we did it. And then we got national recognition from it. Who would have thought? So it was a really fun one. So just little things, and every vintage, like I said, is different in the wine industry. So some years something really shines and does well.
So I'm only going to speak to our kombucha varieties. I think White Rose, we have one called White Rose, and there's some customers that just won't try it because it sounds too floral to them, especially the manlier customers. We also have one called Troy Tea, which is pu'er, oolong, and white, and so it's really focused on the tea flavors. And what we've really realized is it's all in a name. And so the name has to sound good to people to give it a try, even though, they're all really good in their own right. So.
Well, with coffee, I feel, since I'm not growing it, it's kind of interesting. But we do have a roast called Cross Trails that we do, and that I'm kind of proud of. And it's organic coffee. And John and I, a passion of ours is the wilderness in the backcountry and maintaining trails. And we work in we work with a foundation called the Selway Bitterroot Frank Church Foundation, and they work with the Forest Service and on their own to keep trails in the Selway Bitterroot and the Frank Church open so people like us can go and enjoy them and use them. And we donate $1 for every pound to the organization, and as of January 1st of this year, we've donated over $11,000 so far. So that's one way that I feel like that's kind of a hidden gem. So if you can ever see Cross Trails and get a cup at One World or buy a pound, it goes directly, and it does make a difference. And they have generally 12 interns this summer, and it helps to pay their way and keep something that we are passionate about going. So.
Anybody else have a hidden gem? Do you have an herb that you want to share?
I have so many herbs, but I really hesitate, mostly for legal reasons, to really suggest things to people. I'm not a clinical herbalist, and I have to put this on everything. I don't diagnose or treat or cure any illnesses. But I would suggest, if any of you have colds this year, there are some certain herbs that are just fantastic for all over body system support, such as L-campaign root. This was not one that I was even familiar with up until a handful of years ago. It's a beautiful plant, is a host to so many pollinators, and it's just gorgeous to grow in your garden, very easy to grow in our region. So definitely something I suggest to try yourself, just to grow, to use yourself also, very gentle herb. Another herb that's really easy for y'all to grow around here is mugwort. That's Artemisia vulgaris. And that's another one that it's a very gentle nervine. It's a very calming herb. It's fantastic for women at all stages of life. And a hidden gem that I really love, I shouldn't say it's too hidden because people do seem to love it, but not a lot of people know about it yet, is called ashwagandha. And it's an Ayurvedic herb that I grow. It's a root. I'm going to start growing it in my new high tunnel this year, so I can hopefully get the roots to grow a little bit bigger because they're from India. They don't love the Palouse, so it's a little bit harder to grow them, but it's a fantastic adaptogen. So it's just one of those really awesome herbs that's worth a try.
Great, thank you. So this one's for Mark. Oh, did you want to? Okay, great.
So this is not about one particular flower, and this does depend on personality, because some people like to be at the farm when a lot of other people are at the farm, or they intentionally meet other people or families there. But personally, I like the times when it's quieter and you just get to be in communion with the flowers. So those times, it tends to be the earliest morning hours. So by about 10 a.m., there are people picking, and you'll likely run into other people. But if you come earlier and you just want to be out there with the bees and the flowers, that's the time.
Great. Any other? Okay, great. So this question is for Margaret. What steps would you recommend to get involved with farming or volunteering when you have no experience?
That's a tough one. Yes and no, it's a tough one. There's a lot of small farms who are willing to take on volunteers or interns. There's a number of community gardens in Pullman and Moscow. If you're wanting to try growing things, that would be a good place to start. Or if you happen to have a little bit of a space in your yard, same kind of thing. Go through, do a Google search and look for seed companies and request their catalogs. They don't usually charge you for them, and it's like eye candy for a farmer in the spring. I had to hide them because I wasn't ready to deal with them yet. But just whatever looks good, get a packet and just try it if you just wanted to play with it. There's any number of different ways that anything you can think of to just dip your toes in, just give it a try. Especially when it's, especially with plants, it's easy to say that didn't work or I don't like that, and you can scratch it and try something different later. if you're looking to get in with livestock, I know our farm will let people come visit in a semi-structured manner. That's probably true for any number of other farms. If you ask them and say, I'd just like to, pick your brain for an afternoon, most times they, I've never had a problem with people telling me no per se. Once you feel like you've touched some of the things that you are interested in, then I'd say, go to the library, hop on the internet and start reading. And, do the homesteader boards, do old books are really awesome for anything farming. And then look at the big guys too, because there's stuff to be learned from the big guys in whatever industry you're looking at.
All right, thank you. This is a question for whoever would like to answer. What was the biggest challenge to starting your business, and what could have made that process easier?
We started, for our farm, we didn't know anything. We didn't have much money. And especially in Whitman County, we've discovered that there really isn't a whole lot of specific support for people who are starting to farm. There's a lot of stuff in Moscow, and there's a lot of stuff in Idaho, and there's a lot of stuff around for homesteaders, and there's a lot of support for big ag, big wheat farms, but there's not a lot for people who sit in the middle, and that I think is the biggest thing that we've run into. And that's where I have gotten into, ask the big guys, ask the homesteaders, ask anybody you can find, because sometimes there's just not a whole lot of institutional support for your particular little niche.
Great.
This wasn't that big of a barrier for us, but I know it's been a barrier to other people in the past, the HACCP form. And so that's, if you don't know what a HACCP form is, it's, I don't know what it stands for. It's like a health and safety critical control point form. And it's like this anomaly where you really don't know what's supposed to be on it, and there's a flow chart that's confusing. But, we figured it out pretty easily. But if you have a more complex product than our kombucha, it might be hard for some people. And so, we heard that some other people were interested in starting kombucha on the Palouse or even sauerkraut, and they were kind of stopped from the HACCP because they just didn't know what to do, or didn't really, they weren't able to get past that point. So Margaret says it's big and scary. It was okay for us. And so, if you want to do something like that, contact somebody that's done a HACCP, and then they could demystify it for you.
Hannah, did you want to?
Money.
Well, I started our business, we started it a long time ago, but my memory was money. I needed money. And it was really hard because we were young and we didn't really have any money, and we didn't know how to make people trust us to give us any money. And I don't know. So we kind of begged, borrowed, and no, we didn't steal any, but I didn't even think about it, but it was really, really stressful. And then we finally did get some loans, and they were, we didn't get them through a bank. We found, my parents loaned us some money, but I had to pay them back with interest and with somebody in between, and it was really stressful, and I didn't know if we could pay them back or make those loans. And so that is but you can do it. That's the other thing. Don't let money stop you from trying to do something you think you want to do.
I'm just going to build off of the HACCP idea, which I think was a fantastic response. There are a lot, so I'm considered a dietary supplement, so I have slightly different regulations. And this is one of those things before you even get started that, it's really hard to find any information out there, even though federal government and local governments like have these websites and sometimes phone numbers, but sometimes they go nowhere. And sometimes it's really hard to like find anyone to ask. I've had really a lot of luck with the local health department. They've been fantastic. I've had a lot of difficulty with federal government and a lot of the regulations there. And I want to be in compliance. I've had a lot of difficulty. So I wish off the bat that there was an easy resource for me to find out what I needed to be in compliance. So I could have had all this information and been able to set this stuff up from day one. It would have been way easier than to try to do it. I'm 3 years into it now, and I'm still struggling to make sure that I have everything correct. And I think that that's something that really can injure a young business when we don't even know if we're breaking a law or if there's something that we're not supposed to be doing. There's just not enough information compiled out there in a central location. So just really got to do a lot of your homework. And as other people have said, ask other farmers that have been doing it and, to really try to get the information from other people who might already know.
We have another question that flows naturally from this conversation, and this is going to relate to you, Margaret. Are there some rules related to raising meat or eggs that is impacting your ability to be profitable in your business?
Yes and no. Meat and eggs are actually some of the most straightforward regulations I've found, at least in the products that I do. With selling meat retail, you have to do it USDA. There is no other option, and we're really lucky here in that we have not just one, but 2 USDA facilities that will accept outside animals. So that's that's really easy to follow. For eggs, I've noticed in Idaho there's not a whole lot of regulations unless you have more than 300 hens, but at the same time, if eggs is going to be your thing, you're going to want more than 300 hens. In which case, then you step into this next level of regulation, which seems big and scary. It seems kind of complicated. But if you actually sit down and shine a light on it, all of a sudden it's not such this big monster in the closet anymore. Washington has some of those same rules for eggs for even smaller producers where you have to wash them in a certain place and it has to meet these certain criteria, and it's been a real hassle for us because where we live no longer really meets those requirements. But then I was talking with one of the regulation guys in relation to something else, and he gave me a way to solve it, and so that's been a challenge for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily impacted our profitability one way or the other, because we've always been, especially with doing meat, where we just do it in the rules, end of story, because it has so many potential problems that could come if we didn't do it right. So I think as far as that goes, don't be afraid to beat down the door of the people in the regulation offices that are supposed to be in charge of these things and demand help, because that is their job, and if this is going to happen, then you need the help in order to do it. And sometimes it's going to take a long time and a lot of door banging, but you can do it. It just takes persistence.
Great. Thank you. This is a question for Renee. The Moscow Food Co-op sells kombucha in refills. Is it yours? If not, why not? And are you more local than the current vendor?
The answer is no, it's not ours. That's the company out of Coeur d'Alene. For the past 6 months or so, we have been trying to get in the food co-op, but they've been working on a remodel, as you know. And so finally, we're going to be in the Moscow Food Co-op by the end of the month. And we'll be next to the other company, which is great. They focus more on flavoring with juices. We focus more on the teas. And so they're trying to get us in there by Valentine's Day, because we're loves kombucha. That didn't happen, but right now my husband is welding the display and we're getting it all ready to go. So look for us by March 1st, and we'll be in there. So
Great. Thanks.
one more thing is we're also in Huckleberries if you want to find us on tap.
Okay. Awesome. So I'd like to start with Bev on this next question. Have you found a way in your business to maintain a positive impact on the environment?
Well, all our inputs that we have on our farm are from our sheep, the back end of our sheep, I should say. So we use no chemicals or pesticides. So the only thing we use is our sheep manure and bedding and kelp that we get, and some bone meal. So I think that that's a positive on the environment.
Can you repeat it? Sorry.
Have you found a way in your business to maintain a positive impact on the environment?
Well, we have. So our business model is that we only sell on tap. So we don't want to sell just by the bottle. We do have bottles, but we consider them reusable bottles. Well, people will purchase them in the idea that then they would reuse them again and again. And so we didn't really want to promote waste. We wanted to promote reusing a different material, and so that's how. And then on our little piece of land, our farm, for at least our berries and everything else, we use the same methods. We grow things naturally there as well.
All right. Thank you.
So I would say that we're in transition with that, and in conjunction with being transitioned to moving myself into full ownership. My dad is a conventional wheat farmer, and he did the farming primarily in the flower field previously. And he is definitely on the low end of the spectrum in terms of what he's comfortable using in regard to chemicals, but it was more than I was comfortable with. So there was an immediate change with my arrival in that regard. With fertilizers, we're using WSU's compost, and then also like pest treatment and Roundup. Those things were used previously, and now it's more like a couple times last summer he was out there spraying something before I got to it with my neem oil pack. So we're working through that, and he's very open to that change. He's just doing what he's used to. So yeah, we're moving that way.
We have a couple different approaches we do. Our vegetables are all done organically. Our livestock, however, we cannot do it organically because we put a higher priority on local. So all the feed that we buy for our pigs and our chickens is from our neighboring grain farmers, which of course are not organic as much as a lot of them wish they could be. So as much as we'd want to be organic, we just can't. And that's part of the reason we do a lot of our stuff, and we'll continue to do a lot of our sales direct to the consumer so that we can fully explain that to them. And a lot of people, once they get it, it's great. Some of the really cool things I've noticed as we've taken over more ground on our farm, one of the biggest ones is there was a lot of ground right along the creek, right between grain fields that has been in the Conservation Reserve Program for forever. I think 4 years ago or so, it came up for renewal, and our landlords decided to not renew it, but to instead let us graze it with our animals instead. And one of the biggest things I've noticed is that with enough intensive grazing, it has actually turned into a positive thing. It looks great. It grows really well. We can actually see the weeds, even though we're still spraying them with Roundup and 2,4-D and the things like that, which is hard. But our landlords have always been spot sprayers. They don't go out and use the big boom. But now they can get in there and they can see it, so we can control those weeds better. It looks a lot better, and creatures grow on it a lot better, and the ground, it is definitely a lot healthier for being managed by sheep instead of by mandated not managing it when it comes down to it. That's, I think, one of the most exciting things I've seen for our farm.
So for Colter's Creek, vineyards themselves are fairly low impact in terms of compared to most conventional farming. Nowadays, our biggest waste is generated in the winery, being a value-added product, making wine out of the grapes. And so what we've done is move to from the get-go, started out with collecting all of our wastewater that we can in turn irrigate our vines with after we treat it, and then composting all of our waste. And that way we're not throwing anything away, we're not hauling anything to the dump. And that involved changing some minds in local health departments. You know, we were kind of the guinea pigs, and so it was working with them to figure out how to make it work for us, and we did, and those processes are being used now by other growers and wineries that are developing down in the Lewis Clark Valley. In terms of the consumer side, same thing with Love's Kombucha, just trying to reduce the amount of glass we send out. So we have wine on taps and we have refill bottles, so people can just buy a bottle and reuse the bottle over and over and over and over again. So we try to pass the savings on to our consumer with that as well, because we figure we're not spending the money on the bottle. So they get to spend the money on the bottle once and then just buy a lot of wine.
So our farm, since we bought the farm, we've always used organic practices, and we are officially up for becoming organic certified USDA as of last week. But we're waiting for the ISDA, who has run out of funds, so we're not even really on the waiting list yet. So we use all organic practices. A big part of the structure of our farm and the design of our farm has been water conservation and soil erosion, preventing soil erosion, which is a really big deal on the Palouse. If you've ever tried to grow anything, we have no water sometimes for 5 months. So we are in the process of putting in more ponds. We use roof catchment off of most of our buildings. And we've put in hundreds of trees. We put in orchards, a lot of native species that all over the farm, both for us and for wildlife. So there are some that the moose keep eating and the deer. And so we've done all we can, or I shouldn't even say that. We've been doing as much as we can and intend to do more every single year to continue to better our relationship with our land, because we really don't consider ourselves the owners of the land. We're just stewards. And an awesome side effect has been that our neighbors who are conventional farmers of hay have been really respectful of us, and they're kind of like, ooh, this little organic farm. And so they've been good to spot spray ever since we moved in, and they'll come and ask us. They've left us larger buffers, and I really appreciate that. And like, a lot of that was without me even having to say, hey, can you guys back off on that? And like, they just knew. And so I feel like it really is radiating out to some extent to really help, because we have this awesome corridor right in our Spring Valley, and we have this great corridor for wildlife. So it's fantastic if we can keep building that up to prevent any pesticide contamination and whatnot.
Well, coffee's kind of complicated because it comes from really far away to get here. But we try to buy all our coffee from good places, which is, that's something. And all of the coffee that we purchase is specialty coffee. So it's hand-picked. Most of it is shade-grown or organic. And we like to have a connection with the farmers when we can. So we try. But I think with coffee, it's kind of hard here to have a direct connection. And then as far as the waste we produce, we don't really produce any. We have burlap that we reuse and use for, weed abatement. I trade honey with the honey beekeepers, so they use it in their smokers. But other than that, we really don't produce much waste. Pallets. I get a lot of pallets, and I have a guy, I don't know what he does with them all, but he hauls all my pallets away. And but other than that, I try to recycle boxes because we ship quite a bit of coffee, and that's been a concern. But we just try, but it's definitely not a perfect system. And
thanks. So we have 2 more questions. One of them is, what can Latah County do to support your farm or small business? And if you're in Whitman County, you could answer it from what could Whitman County do? Or maybe Nez Perce County. Are you in Nez Perce County down in Julietta?
We're both Nez Perce.
Okay.
I think it would be fantastic, and this may be a pipe dream, if there was some way to sell our products in some sort of community system that didn't always require the presence of the farmer. It's a lot of work to attend farmers markets and prepare for them. And even though it may be a wonderful part of the job, sometimes you just run out of time. And I think it would be great across all the different, the spectrum of different products to have one, place for people to be able to purchase products that was community owned, community supported. But yeah, I don't know. Got to move along with that idea.
Definitely. We have a restaurant as well, and one of our big drawbacks of using local products is we just can't get them. It takes, if I have to drive up here to Moscow or into Lewiston to get them, it's 2 hours of my time, and I'm just not going to do it. I don't have the time. So an easier way to get in connection and have a delivery system with the farmers would be great for us. I would say in terms of Nez Perce, Latah, Whitman County, be open to new ideas. There's a lot of new things happening in terms of farms and value-added products, and rather than just jump on people with regulation and shut them down, work with them from the beginning and educate yourselves and the people that you work with so that all this can happen, because there's a lot of really cool stuff that is not bad. It just needs to be dealt with.
We've actually been working with I think it's the Palouse Conservation District. Our farm actually is straddles both in the area. But I think it's the Palouse Conservation District. They are applying for a small farmer grant. I forget exactly what it's called. But in essence, what they would like to do is figure out how to help smaller, beginning farmers, people that don't normally fit into what already is going on in Whitman County. So I'm really excited to be working with that as far as Whitman County goes.
So I'm in Whitman County as well. And what Margaret talked about earlier and then just now in regard to all the resources are oriented towards large grain farms. So, and I don't know if it's because I've come to Moscow for all the trainings that I know a lot of small farmers, like vegetable growers and different things that are in Latah County, but I don't know any that are in Whitman County aside from Margaret. So, and then WSU this past year, they're not doing their CSA this year. So there's a need for it. I know there's demand because I know people that were on a waiting list for years and now are disappointed. So that support would be wonderful. And Latah County, I feel like, really has a model that Whitman County could follow.
I really don't have much to add to the question. Our experience has been great.
I don't either.
Okay. Great. So I do want to just mention to everybody in the audience that there are a lot of resources up here about webinars and events that are going on that are designed to support local farms and food entrepreneurs. And also that we have actually trustee for a no-interest loan program through Kiva, and where a beginning business can get up to $10,000 in a zero-interest loan. And Marcy Miller and her husband Greg were the first recipients of a Kiva loan for Deep Roots Farm. So we are building some different resources, and if you're looking for something in particular, please let Marcy or I know, because we would be really happy to help you. And definitely everything that does get offered in Latah County is open to anybody in Whitman County in terms of participating. So the last question is a nice question to end with because it's a visionary question. So how do you see the local and regional food and agriculture system changing in the next 10 to 25 years?
You handed it to me. Go first. I would say that I hope that there's more incentives for not just the growers and producers, but for people to support their local farmers and their local producers. I think there's a great push in the Moscow-Pullman area to support local. I spend a lot of my time down the hill, and it's different. And a lot of that's money-driven and culture-driven, but I think there needs to be more reason for people to do it to wipe out the apathy. So it'd be great if, I don't know where it would be, the government. Come on, government, do something. But get people to support the local farmers. Maybe there's, incentive and tax incentive. I don't know. Taking away taxes, so let's just keep doing it, right? Yeah. Anyone else?
I'd like to see in the future that there be, every school has a garden, and the school cafeterias use those gardens to feed the kids. I would like to see every community have a community garden. I would like to see in the future that every town had a community kitchen where people could go and learn how to cook or make their product to sell at a farmer's market.
My thought was, our community is already very local food aware, which is pretty phenomenal. I think we have one of the best farmers markets in the area, for sure we do. And so I just would hope that it just continues to grow that way. People continue to support local and love the community and the farmers and all the products that come from here.
I think land is one of the greatest resources that we have as a country. And there are so many pockets, whether it's our yards or little corners and highways. There's so much that could be used. And I would love to see a movement towards just like an individual ownership of producing food. It's amazing how much you can produce in a really small space. So when I think about food security and small farms being encouraged to grow, I think a better strategy even for people individually is to grow ourselves. Like all of us have a part in that.
I'm seeing in our customers, I'm seeing a lot more awareness. I'm seeing a lot of younger people come down to the markets. Actually, like they want to get into food, they want to know what's going on, they want to eat good food, and they know that it's going to cost a little bit more because you're paying somebody who lives here and is trying to actually make a living. So I'm seeing a lot more just general awareness, which is really good. And I want to see farmers and consumers work together and talk with each other about, especially regulatory things. They really can, people can affect those things if there's changes happening or new regulations coming into effect. And I would like to see people just pay attention to those things a little bit more. I've seen a lot of things over the years, they get implemented and it has a huge impact on what suddenly can or can't show up in whatever market it might try to be in. So, yeah.
I guess one of the biggest changes I'd like to see is just an evening of the playing field, because it's very much interesting to me that you can go to a store and pay less money for something that's like shipped across the country multiple times, sometimes coming with herbs, oftentimes coming from across the world, to go somewhere else to get packaged, and then coming to us here and somehow costing less money than we can produce it for locally, and doing all of this environmental damage, and also damaging the places where it's produced, not supporting a healthy environment or a healthy community where it's produced, and somehow that's cheaper. So there's a lot of disconnect there. There's a lot of issues with how subsidies are doled out and how the power is distributed. So it would really be nice to get a lot more of that production and distribution localized, so that we have more control over what we put into our bodies, which I don't think we often have enough control over because we also have to be able to afford it. So yeah, that's one of my biggest dreams.
Okay, thank you. I want for all of us to thank our panel. I know that I can speak for everyone in saying that we loved hearing your stories, that you are really inspirational, and we really appreciate everything you do. So thanks for being here tonight and sharing with us. We really appreciate it. I do want to point out that there are a couple displays that are from some of our growers, and so you can take a look at those before we adjourn for tonight. And we do have 4 more raffles. And while you're digging out your raffle tickets, if you could also dig out your evaluation, that would be helpful to us because we look at those when we plan for next year. So we will have Love Your Farmer, Love Your Food next year, so you can mark your calendar.